All right.
All right.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Hello, hello.
I love how weird this is. Like the three of us are speaking in the end, but like we don't realize that there are a
Yeah,
lot
there's
of
no
people.
feedback.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, everybody. We are waiting for a few people to join, obviously, but start, kind of asking questions, adding anything in the chat. We'll, in any case, try to answer as many questions as possible if needed, of course, at the end of the webinar. Right. All right. Bon, let's do it, huh?
Yeah,
I think
go.
in any case, yeah, it's worth noting that we'll record this one and we'll try to publish it ideally in 2 weeks, in less than 2 weeks. This is just the first one of a series of webinar on transitioning to remote. This one is high level and it's kind of like the biggest lessons that we learned, but we don't go too much in detail. We'll still give a lot of examples and stories. If you have like more specific topics that's super interesting for you, obviously check the next one. They will be probably more interesting. All right, so this is, like about nailing your transition to remote. We've been working remotely with Pierre, which is the co-founder and CTO at Slite, and Laure, which is handling product marketing at Slite in remote since the beginning. So our first employee, Arnaud, was in 2016, was in remote, just a few hours away from Paris, where we were based with Pierre. And, like granularly, little by little, we started to get into full remote mode and to ditch our office 2 years ago, and we will never come back, I think. So yeah, let's get to it. Just one word on Slides and what to expect from this. I see a lot of names that I know, so I think a lot of you know Slite, but Slite, if you don't know, is a collaboration and communication tool. It's made to centralize your team information in one place. And when we say information, it's really all the information. So the canonical knowledge like handbook, but also the projects, documentation, your meeting docs, and so on. And beyond just writing and try to editor, it's really great. Beyond just that, our goal is really to give your team the best experience to work in remote and work with more transparency, more asynchronous communication, more written culture, and overall discover the benefits of remote culture. So that's what we'll be speaking about today. So yeah, just to kind of like, remind you, as you all know, remote is the new normal, and we want you to help transition. You have like this kind of thing that you probably acknowledged that many people have seen in the last few months where teams are transitioning from office to remote. The problem is they are sticking with the habits of office work, and that just doesn't make it. So our goal is to make you remote ready. The reason for that and for which we think we can help is because since the beginning of Slite, we were in remote and we moved to more and more remote and to full remote across the year. And the thing that gets me really, really excited about this one is that this webinar is with Pierre, my co-founder and CTO. And if there was like one learning that I could give, that is the overarching one, is that you need to, especially if you're a manager or kind of founder, having a sparring partner to kind of challenge constantly the way you're doing things is probably the biggest key in remote. We'll come back to that, but being in remote is exactly the same complexity as going from 1 employee to 10. You have a ton of habits to change. And so you need to be able to have this feedback loop constantly of challenging yourself. And that's what we did across 4 years with Pierre. And so, yeah, I'm super happy because Pierre will be able to share a ton of stories about that today. So for the last newcomers, please ask your questions in the question part of of Livestorm. We'll be going through them as we speak and at the end. So yeah, here are the 4 main lessons that we had. The idea is that we'll probably do 1 webinar for each, and now we start with 1 overarching one. Obviously, all these lessons comes with specifics and subtleties for your specific case. So take it with a pinch of salt. You will have to adapt, obviously, these lessons to your team, but we think that they are generic and that all teams working lessons need to incorporate these 4 lessons. Yeah, do you want to start, Pierre?
Yes. So welcome in my kitchen. I think the ultimate example of what's not working in remote is stand-up meeting. I don't even know if it's working in a physical office, but when we started Slite, as Chris said, we were part of the team, like most of the team was in Paris, and we had one engineer, the first engineer, Arnaud, in tour. And every morning at 9 o'clock, we were having this little stand-up where everybody goes through the past day and what they're planning for the upcoming day. And it was kind of a strange moment because you have this strange sound, because you have like this proximity, this physical proximity of the person inside the stand-up meeting in Paris, and you have this remote person not in the same room, not in the same city, and they don't get the same vibe, they don't get the same energy, and they don't get the same audio and video as you, because you are in the same physical space and this person is far away. So first we decided to stop those kind of in-person physical stand-up meeting, and we switched to something more flexible. So we were in front of each other computer and we were talking to our computer. So at least we were having the same audio and video experience. It was a huge thing for Arnaud to be able to feel connected through Zoom or through Google Meet at the time. And after a year or two, when we grew the company, stand-up meeting were kind of like a waste of time, because we started to have people not in the same time zone, with not the same schedule. So people were starting their day a bit later, a bit earlier, and it was really like, I think, breaking their day. And we decided to like cut and stop the stand-up meeting. It was something that felt hard at the time. Like we were really, I think it was a great thing. I think it was something that Chris liked to start the day with the kickoff with the whole team. But we really decided to stop this meeting and do just occasional update through Slack or through Slite via a note. And it was, I think, hugely beneficial, because we were spending a coffee or time in a video meeting to chat about our lives, our mood, what was not going well, and we were not just reporting on the stuff we were doing. And also, like, if you're a team and when you start to be 10 in your team, people will want to update maybe early in the day, maybe late at night. Like, if you want to be really flexible, you need to let the flexibility to people. And this is something quite key to transition.
I think you said it, like the main lessons that we got, or the kind of main benefit that we got from this moment, and we thought it was stand-up meetings and the kind of like being sure that everybody had the right task to work on, and to unblock people that were stuck. But really what we loved with these meetings were just having the human connection, right? And this bit, obviously, we didn't lose. Like, we kept it in other ways, like through like kind of informal chat in Slack or in Zoom that we start every day a bit informally. But the stand-up meeting part, this bit was really useless.
Yeah. And so an example of what we do now, for instance, I try to find, when I'm in a team, because I'm working sometimes with a squad, I try to find, I call this person a champion, a coffee meeting champion. And this person will weekly kickstart a coffee meeting on Wednesday. So mine is Guillaume, our mobile engineer, for instance. He's going to start every week on Wednesday. Really an open call, so it's totally optional. If you don't want to join the call, you're not forced to. But this is a really I think a peaceful moment where people share story about their kids. I don't know, about something they watched the past day, and it gives something that you miss in remote. I think human proximity, and also a sense of a team. And sometimes, we diverge and we go to talking about work. But I prefer that over like fixed and automatic stand-up meeting.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, you have the picture right here. I think you all have that. Honestly, I have a ton of that in my calendar. And these are the worst, right? Like the kind of recurring meetings, like every day, like plugging 1 hour slots. I have a story of my wife that is working in large corporation, or has been working in large corporation, where every week they were having 2 hours with 25 people in a room, kind of reporting their work. that's just something that's, like in any setup, remote or not, it's just, waste of time of everybody. And asynchronous updates on Slite plus informal chat in Slack and Zoom that you just trigger every day or every week if needed is a way, way better way to do it. You get the benefit of both parts of the stand-up meeting. Just to go next, like I think, like the overall section is fewer meetings, better done. Meetings is, core part, and a lot of people don't know how to get rid of meetings. And frankly, it's hard, right? So it requires a constant challenging. Another thing that we saw is, I think many of you can recognize yourself or your team in this kind of screenshot, right? Like massive Zoom meetings with like, 4, I don't know if you see, but you have like 1 and 4 right here. So it's kind of like maybe, 80 people in the same meeting. I assume you have maybe 3 people that are really engaged in this call and all the rest that are on Twitter or on Slack, on whatever, like on the side. And that's the thing, like when you have that many people in a meeting, that's obvious they won't pay attention, especially in remote. Well, when you have like these 2 beautiful people only, that's obvious that each person in the call in one is fully attentive. And so that's, to me, my thumb rule and the thing that we try to make work at Slite. If you have 2 people, 100% of attention for each person will be to the call. If you have 3 people, it will be close to 100%, a bit less. And as you add people, it kind of decreases dramatically. You will necessarily have one person that is still completely, like not inside the call and not paying attention. So fewer meetings and better done. Obviously, we didn't speak about that, but like we recommend strongly, we always do that, to have an agenda, and most of the time to actually treat most of the items asynchronously before the meeting starts. You have the famous Amazon rule where you start any meeting by having like a 6-pagers that everybody needs to read before even starting to talk. That's a bit intense. So, like you have a middle ground, I think. But having just a document that you ping the people on the day before, 1 hour before, and they can react to that, and so that you don't have to waste time for everybody during the call, is highly, highly effective. So yeah, that was the first big bit. If you have other questions on meetings, feel free to ask them in the chat. Oh yeah, and I forgot about this one. This is actually an example of what we do at Slite. It's actually unusual for many people, but maybe Laura, since you are the one that write this, you can talk about it.
Yeah, so the story behind it is that Chris and myself, we had this like weekly marketing sync, and like 50% of the time it ended up being reporting, and it was even more frustrating because we were in an office, so it was like we would both leave our the open space and then go into an office just for it to be like a reporting meeting, and it was just not a fun experience, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this before. So then we started thinking, how can we make this better? And what we landed on was basically I would prepare a kind of long form reporting of everything that was important for Chris to know about, so I didn't have to report in real time. And then from that reporting, kind of agenda items that we needed to discuss and that were actionable. And so the sessions became just so much more enjoyable for the both of us. And also a really cool outcome was that sometimes during the reporting, I realized that there was nothing really interesting to add to the agenda. So we were like, okay, you know what, let's skip this one. Let's just do it asynchronously and, replace it with like a fun chat about our lives, but not necessarily to talk about marketing. So I think that was also a great outcome.
Yeah, I know that on my end, it was like night and day, like just like massive. And that's like, I think I've never seen any team doing something similar. So the kind of like blog post format where you kind of like, give the report and then ask the question and say, we'll work on that. But that's incredibly effective. You just have to play the game, obviously. All right. So second thing is obviously, we are kind of, how do you say, preaching our core, right? This is, like you need to have one central source of truth. When you think about it, it's pretty simple. I think a lot of you here, well, I saw a lot of users of Slite. I think you're convinced of that already. If you are in remote, you need to collaborate across time and space. You can't nudge somebody at the right moment in the same place. You're not in the same office, and you don't have the same time schedule. So you need to have a way to collaborate without interrupting each other. And for that, you need to find the information you need whenever you want without disrupting the other people. So that's why we believe that you need a very, very strong centralized source of information. And that's something that you see commonly in all the well-known remote teams, whether it's Buffer, InVision, Product Hunt, Zapier. Like every time you can see that this is one core part of their culture. So here you can see onboarding at Slite, obviously, that we do and run in Slite, our handbook, which is the canonical knowledge, the projects that we start and collaborate on in Slite, but really it goes through all the aspects of your job. So yeah, like that's an example, just the canonical knowledge part, like the FAQ and the handbook are obviously, you know, like a good fit for that. But we really think that it goes way beyond, because frankly, like these are the kind of things that you open once every month, maybe, or less. And the thing that really started to make a difference and where we kind of started to see the sparkle in the teams that use it this way is really when they start to document projects. So maybe Pierre, you can speak about how we do that and how we evolved.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a good example of about before and after, but before Slide, I think a long time ago, long time ago, like something like 5 or 10 years. So, so not that long ago, actually. I was using, I was at a software company and we were developing a software. And every single person in the team, they were using like different tool, and they were using Evernote or Google Docs or even Word. And to find a specification for features was really extremely hard. So you had to basically nudge the product manager and ask for the link. And it was basically link everywhere, link in the chat software, link in, I don't know, like links sent over SMS even sometime. So it was quite messy. The good thing is that now at Slite, we don't do that. We use, of course, Slite as the central hub for all the project documentation. And one good example of something we did recently, we did that pretty bad also, like a lot of the time in the past, but I have a good example. That's something we did this summer. We were planning to improve our search. It was like good enough, but it was not as good as it could be. So we decided to do like, I think it was between 6 and 8 improvements on the search. So what we did is we started to just build just a one document with all the improvement we could think of, and also all the analytics, all the data we gathered to see what we could do, and the competitors on the same page, really like bluntly on the same page. And after a day or two, we formed an idea of what should be done first and what should be done second. So right after that, I just took the document, split the document in 3, and started to implement the first items. And while I was developing, I was also doing my technical spec on the side, and I was repitching, we call pitching at Slide, the fact of, I think, tailoring and trying to precise something. And because I did that, I could ship improvements like maybe once or twice every week. And after four weeks, I had to hand over the project to someone else in the team, quite like from one day to like, I think I stopped on Monday, and Tuesday this person had to start over the project. And the good thing is, because it was maybe a bit chaotic, but at least it was expressive, and I think the nature of the project was through this project documentation. This person was able to take over by the competitors' research, the data, what specs has been done, and what spec is still ongoing. And I think we successfully shipped the project just the week after because of the background and how we used the meeting, and everything was at the same place with the good data. And this person keep updating the document, and the product managers also could follow the work through the document. Yeah. So it was kind of a success.
One way to kind of compare it with what would have happened before and after is kind of before, I know that we had Trello, for instance. I think this would just have been one thing that the PM would have pushed without explanation on what should happen, which is just to do in the backlog, search and channel.
Yeah.
And the difference is that in that scenario, Arnaud had all the context, all the background, all the data that we wanted to track, all the kind of like customers that wanted this feature. Like everything was actually documented, and it could have like the why we are doing things, like was that actually an important stuff. He had like very much like really like everything in hand to do a great feature.
Yeah. Of course, like he was missing some piece of information, so he could like do a video call with the product manager. But also, I think we kept track of some decisions during our meetings next to the specification. So this is something also that is like live, like you write down the decision you take. So this person can like read through the backlog of the features and then start over.
We have a few questions. I think so. Cole asked a question just about meetings, about whether you should read a document beforehand or read it all together when you're going over a document. And so that's Cole's question, if one of you wants to answer it.
So the question is like, do we have the async parts ahead of the meeting or before? To me, it's actually the same, right? When you think about the time spent, if you have like, 3 people in the meetings, it's close to have the same time, because like the 2 people that are attendees, let's say, if the 3 people are actually preparing, like the 3 are spending, let's say 20 minutes or 10 minutes to prepare the meeting. And if they are like at the same time reading through what the others have done, it's the same. The only thing is like, if you do it ahead of time, you can actually tweak the agenda of the meeting beforehand.
Yeah, true.
And that's to me like the big plus. And I think Amazon style, honestly, it's just that this is a rule for execs and they just don't have time. And I think this is why, like at least they can have a slot in their calendar and be sure that everybody in the exec team will have the time to treat it.
Yeah, and as an employee, I quite like the first as well, just because it leaves me time to come with, I don't know, more thought out answers and things to say during the meeting. Whereas I think it might feel like you're on the spot if you do it really the second option.
I think that's a lot. It's actually funny because I see that we have like one of the attendees that is Tanya, that is a coach that helps our team work, and we did this work with her with a few people in the team, and we see how much like the personalities in the team are different, and some people in a remote setup will thrive more just because they have the time to prepare and they have the time to come with good arguments and elaborated work, while they are not at all the type of personality that thrive in fast meetings where they have to ping pong on ideas and so on. So that's a good argument for them.
And there was also a question from Guillermo on project documentation and just like general organization and tagging for it to be easier to search. I think, I'll give an answer. You can maybe back it up, but I think one way is like a lot about making sure that it's a logical way that you're naming them. I think also then the Slite search allows you to go and see more specifically which channel and where you're looking for the information. So that's like also an easier way to do it. But I think a big thing is making sure that you're using terms that make sense in the long term to like at least always using the same term to refer to the same thing.
Yeah, I think naming things is the most important thing, because like we often struggle at making better search at Slite because people use different names across the company. This is something we see often, and yes, choosing proper naming is the same for coding, same also for designing. Sometimes, like really naming properly things is super important. And why are you laughing, Chris?
Because I'm thinking that, like the way you phrase it, like the next feature that we should build for search is NLP, where when you type comments, you will have conversation that pops up. That's the next level slide.
And also, I think it's my personal opinion, but I think that when it comes to project documentation, you should have like a right to forget. So I think after a year or two, you should also like not go get after information. So I silently sometimes archive project, archive not when they are stale, because I feel that if the person, because I know a team is going to work on the new features and we already work on these features maybe 2 years ago, and I could like rename with the year in the title for them to know like it happened like 3 years ago. So it's like basically stale information. or just archived it because like it's totally stale and totally outdated. So yeah, don't do that.
I think that's a good advice as well. Like just like being able to archive things and to accept that things are not, like don't always like kind of belong in a knowledge base. That's a really, really important one.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So this is the third big point that we have for you. This one is about ideation and thinking. That's a difference that we saw from before and after. Office brings a lot of serendipity. Like we'll come to your question, Romain, about how do you recreate this serendipity. One thing that serendipity can bring is innovation. And that's a bit harder in a remote. I don't know if you felt it already, if you are new to remote, or like if you felt it for 10 years, if you are like an old timer of remote. But that's indeed harder. And so the way we do it and the kind of like thing that we so naturally merge at Slite is how much people start pitching things. So when we say pitch, it's really an idea, not a company, obviously, but really kind of like pitching ideas and new projects that we could be doing. And that's not just features inside the normal roadmap. So I put two examples there. We have this smart table in Slite called Clarity on Big Topics. The idea is that some things are just really, really long-lasting. They are hard to address, and they need to have like proper time to be thought through. They can't be instantly solved. So, for instance, typically the smart table question. So, like this is a new feature. It has been something in progress for a long time, and we've been asking a lot of questions internally. Well, we can't have this, this kind of water cooler effect where we keep, having ideas, and the PM will meet with the dev from another team and start speaking about that inside the office. So what we do is actually we document it and we leave it as an open question. So anybody can come, contribute, challenge the person, and it's really clear who is the owner of the end decision. So that's one thing that we've seen working for the very, very large. So just to give you an idea, there is never more than 6 topics open at a time. So that's one thing that helps us think through large topics. And the other is this was actually like an idea that we have not developed yet. It was a prototype. The idea is if you have crazy new stuff that you want to bring to Slite. So this one is Slite apps. The idea is to use the application, the content that you have in Slite, and be able to create application based on this content through an API and through like a small application SDK. So like you create a document and a lot of nested document in Slite, and you can use that, and it will generate a help center for your team, for instance. This is really hard to pitch. You need to have more details. So what happens very often is that you actually start by prototyping. We actually have dedicated moment for that called off Slite, where we kind of gather and we work together on ideas. We can also do it async, and so that's a very, very good way to do it. Just like try it, you publish it to the team, and you say like what do you feel about that? Like you ask the people that are more close to the topic, these kind of things. And in the end, I think it makes you have more qualitative ideas. Like it allows you to put a lot of thoughts to involve just the right people, so that you don't have like straight away the negative person or the person that is not super knowledgeable that will put you down and so on. So that's the way we kind of see thinking and ideation working in remote. Anything to add, Pierre or Laure, on this one?
No, I think also I would add that it's when you're having ideas and everything, it's really easy to jump to like the immediate solution and what's going to happen and what are you going to do. And I found that for me, it's always been super helpful to first, like think of the background, think why you're doing it, and just having a template that we use and having to write everything and then share that in writing. The fact that it's written makes it so much more, I don't know, official in a way. So you want to present something good, and so it is more thought out. It's like you're forced to ask yourself questions that might come later. So it's kind of like you catch the blind spots earlier, I find.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think there was a good question also like in the chat about if like people fresh in their career are most at risk with remote work. And I think it takes, of course, like some some expertise and some times to be good at a job, and then be good at writing in advance for a meeting, and really like being good at writing is something that is hard, and people fresh in their job can find this challenging, and even people that are experts can find this challenging to have to be super synthetic through the notes, and to just being the clever items, the important items, and reduce the noise. At the same time, I will answer the question after that, but at the same time, I think it's a more diverse way to approach, I think, working. If you leave people with the best idea to come after a debate, and you let people the time to write about their thoughts, about the decision they would like to take, I think in a way it's like a more modern way to work than having all people in an office and they just shout ideas at each other. For junior in the industry, I think that yes, remote working is definitely challenging for them. You can have some benefits, like if you are in the technical field, I think you have a lot of remote companies, and it can be easy to find a job or an intern remotely. Yeah. But sometimes you will need a lot of coaching, and can be tough. We just hired our first junior engineer in remote this summer, so we are still learning. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I don't have the best answer. I'm still learning on that. Yeah. To be frank.
To me, like the big benefits, it depends on for fresh people in their careers. I think it also depends on the culture of the company and what you put in place. The benefit of remote is because you can't rely on the office, you need to build a ton of stuff to make the company work. So you need to have transparency, you need to have a lot of communication, informal and formal, but asynchronous, to counterweight that. And so in the end, I kind of feel, so we have these two developers, so Eric and Alison, that joined us this summer, that are junior. I do think that they had like a lot of documentation. Everything was written down. They could find anything. They could find anything on the company. Like they didn't have this thing where, you don't know what this other department is doing, and you kind of like learning step by step, and you need to have the right introduction, and, to have almost a political game to start, knowing what marketing is working on and so on. So I do feel that in the right setup, you actually can have a better experience as a freshman in remote. So yeah, but I definitely think that if you start right now as a fresh person in a company that was not used to do remote, that's probably a nightmare. All right, let's move on.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the 4th point. I think it will answer your question, Romain, about how do we manage to still have the bonding and the teammate, the feeling of being part of a team in remote. So just to be clear, I consider that we have like one of the team that I know that feels the closest. We really have really good relationship. And so I can say that it's totally possible in remote. Obviously, it needs to have some changes. And we're lucky enough to make this kind of transformations very, very early on. So obviously, it was easier. So the idea is you need trust and bonding. That's a bit more difficult, I believe, for the people that are more task-oriented than people-oriented. So the people that are a bit more, like looking at the results, I think they probably can have a better experience in remote. But when they are managers, they can, they need to over-index on the people aspect of things, just so that people, feel confident enough to push new projects and so on, which is really more difficult than in an office. So the way to do that is through, different means. I put an example here of Shudat. This is a channel that we have in Slack. It's an example. I actually created that a year and a half ago. It came from Clearbit that used to do that. The idea is just to have like a place for public praise. I actually think that it's way better than what could happen in an office, because everybody hear it and you don't have the awkward thing of, being praised in public. And probably some people can, lead to that in a bit, have a bit weirdness, social weirdness. So that's a really, really massive, I think, factor for teams to feel, motivated and see that, their work is rewarded. The second one is the one-ones. We have one-ones with everybody in the team very, very frequently. You all know about one-ones, I guess, just, meeting with 2 people. The thing is, the thing is, like one can be done in totally different ways. The way we try to really push them at Slite is not speak about work, really speak about, like the meta aspect of work. So, like, how do you feel in your career? How do you feel, do you feel fulfilled at work? Like, do you think that you have the right tools to progress in your career? Do you feel that you are with the right teammates? These kind of things. And I know that this was actually like one of the things that in a way saved us in many situations with Pierre since the beginning. And every week we have these moments that are really like the core part of my ritual personally, that are just, like I would have a ping pong to speak about the kind of like top level of a company and say all the things that are kind of problematic, make sure that all the bad remote practice that we have a moment to address them. And to say, like, I think the team is not, like super like performing because of that and so on. So you have like this moment to speak about this kind of like meta layer of your work. That's a very, very important part, I think. Mm-hmm. And the last part is, the last example is weekly updates. We have this kind of like updates that we send every week. And that's just about keeping everybody on the same pulse. Like just, constantly giving them the metrics, constantly giving them like some kind of motivator. You're on the other end of the mic on this one, Laura. I don't know like how you feel about that, but I think this is also a core part of feeling part of the team when you start receiving those.
Yeah, I'm always super excited to read them. So I look out for them on Mondays for sure.
Yeah, and obviously this is not just remote, right? Like a lot of companies do that, but
it's also about transparency, because like in an office, you can be transparent on numbers, maybe at the coffee machine, or you can talk like numbers in an office, but in remote, like if you don't do that, like just no one will know the numbers and the things. So I think this is something also to build transparency and trust, to just share numbers during weekly updates, and they are accessible by default publicly to all the team. Super important, and push to them without too many acronyms, if we can.
So I think another thing that a lot of people feel remote is isolating and is lonely, and this kind of comes back to what Chris said, where because you don't have the office to rely on, you actually create a lot of frameworks in remote to stop this isolation. So I think a really good example is onboarding. And right now I'm onboarding someone in the marketing team, and he's actually living on the west coast of Canada. So that's like a lot of hours of difference. And so there's a lot of checking in, and there was a lot of preparation beforehand to make sure that everything would go well and that he would feel like he understands what is expected of him. We like created his roles and outcomes with him. And I'm talking to him, like I'm checking in with him almost every day, even if it's just to talk 10 minutes and ask how he is. And I think I've experienced before in companies that have offices where you arrive and you feel so lonely, even though there are so many people around you, just because you have no idea of what's expected of you, what's next. It's a very awkward position. And in a remote setup, you just cannot do that. Like it's just obvious if it's happening. So I think that's like a really positive thing. And we've really worked on that a lot.
Yeah. And it's actually a good example. Like I think everybody that has worked in an office has this experience of arriving on the Monday and everybody is super busy and you are like behind them, and say, hey, I'm Lo, I'm Chris. And like they are, everybody like gives their name, you forget immediately all of them.
Exactly.
And like it's kind of like 10 seconds of kind of weirdness. You work in marketing. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I've even had the experience where they didn't have, I mean, I was an intern, but they didn't have an office, like a space for me to
yeah,
work.
that's the worst.
And so that's super awkward because it's like, okay,
I think
you feel like people were expecting you, or I don't know. It's a very, I think it's an uncomfortable position that a lot of people go through, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. Like I will show mine. Well, it's obviously not not the perfect one because I wrote it like years after I arrived. But we have this tradition at Slite, which is really, really cool. Well, at least we really appreciate it internally, where we write introduction documents. So we have these like long form documents that like we'll say like, hey, I'm Chris, I'm the CEO of Slite, and like, well, a picture of me, baby, and like explaining my life, like what I did before Slite, when I launched Slite, and so on. And the thing is, like in these documents, you have like a ton of comments. You have a lot of people that like would start to like a lot of people have watched this document, at least 28 people, and that's the same for all these documents. And you have like a lot of kind of interaction that gets created, but on the time of everybody, right? Like you don't have this kind of awkwardness of like nudging the people and, hey, this is Law, say hi. It's kind of like whatever you want, you can actually react and start commenting and so on.
Yeah, definitely. And then it's such a good thing. Like if someone new joins, I always send them a personal message like, welcome to the team.
Yeah.
And then, that person is going to maybe set up a call with you in their first weeks. And then you have this really good base of their intro to kind of have a first conversation and get topics going.
Yeah, we had like that constantly of people doing yoga or people having a passion for photography together, and they just like connect really more easily this way.
Yeah, food. Everyone is obsessed with food. It's like, so that's a big one.
I think it's just that we have like massive part of the team that is French, so obviously.
Yeah, true. I think Cole asked a really good question about YC and remote. Because we did YC, it was the opposite of remote. We were in 7 people in a house.
Yeah.
Sharing bedrooms and everything.
I'm trying to see if there was somebody in the. If there was somebody in the chat that did YC and want to answer, like feel free, feel free to add that did YC in remote. I mean, but else, I would say yes, just because YC, the big advantage that you have is honestly the visibility. The adventure that we had at YC was between the team, frankly. Like the partner challenges is insane. It's really like the best people in the planet to challenge you on things. Typically, like to me, like the strongest memory that I keep having was with Gustav, which was the ex-lead lead growth, at Airbnb. That is the partner at YC, and it just like like I arrived in his office at YC a day in 2018, I think, and I came out of it, and I had like 2 months of work done. Basically, like it just answered so many of my questions instantly that it was crazy, and that's probably something that you have also in remote. So yeah, I would say that's definitely like the valuation will be better if you're trying to raise. The feedback that you will get from partner will be insane, and you can still have the same kind of like remote YC feeling between your team. You just have to convince them to go for 2 months in the woods and work together on the same thing. Like honestly, like you can still do the same.
Yeah.
All right. Keep obviously asking a question if you have. Cheers, Roma. I think there is like like we're at the end of it. Oh no, sorry, Pierre, you had like a story. That's a good one.
Yeah, I have some examples like for managing remote. This is something we did during COVID. We planned a Zoom call with a farm where we went through all the animals they had in the farms. It was a great moment. A bit weird, but this was great. I think managing people is hard in office. It's hard in remote. And the weird thing is that in remote, you're going to face issues faster than in an office. Like you don't have like the coffee chat, you don't have the party after work, so you're gonna face issues and you're gonna I think face them quite fast. One thing that I did pretty badly, I think we have to talk about the bad things too, is like when we started to be full remote, I was so obsessed with the little green dot on Slack to see if people were online and they were actually working during the working hours, and I was really obsessed. It was driving me mad. I knew it was quite bad, and then I tried to like find a good way to balance that, and I think it was just my perspective of the work was completely wrong. I was still too synchronous with the person I was managing. So what I switched was I plan I did some one template I was sending to the people I was managing with questions, like 6 to 8 questions. And it was not something they had to fill every week, but it was a good conversation starter, and it was a bit more personal and introspection question. And so this way, I was able to get into more complex discussion that you usually have during one-on-ones. Like, yeah, I'm not feeling that good because I was pretty sick last night. And no, it was more deep because people, they were thinking of the one-on-one in advance. They were preparing it a bit, and they were having, during the one-on-one session, some question and the beginning of the answers. So we could like switch directly to the solution phase where we could like really dig the issues together. So it was a huge relief for me to be able to do that. And I think it was also thanks to remote, because the direct way to go and check on people is not around.
I mean, I think the easy indicator is that you would have hated that if you were managed, right?
Yeah, and I think that's why it was driving me crazy, because I would like personally, like I would have hated if my manager would have done that to me.
Yeah, I think it's really about building trust, like just like trusting that your employee is doing the job, and that was, obviously having like just like explicit goals written somewhere in Slite, and on the other way, like trusting that your manager will let you do the job.
Yeah.
All right. So I know that we are being a bit not over time, but we are at the end of this thing. So just this webinar would be actually like unfolding into a series of other webinars on each of these topics. We'll probably do intervention with other people and so on. So just, like send us our way in the chat or by email after what you need to hear, like what are your biggest challenge that you want to see addressed. We'd love to hear that. And, you'll be sent like the next ones if you want to attend. I wanted to just wrap up with that. I think this is the meta lessons that I got with Pierre as we grew the team. The challenge was, like all these lessons are good, but probably that you can find them on your own and you can tailor them to your own needs. Like, for instance, I don't know at all our team with partly field workers and parts remote, remote worker properly would work. So these lessons would have to be adapted. To me, remote was the same as scaling the team really, really fast. It was just like another dimension. The good thing about that is that you will be ready for scale really earlier. The bad thing is that you need to do it already. And the solution to that is being able to change the way of working. So, like if you are in position of management, do it. If not, like push this webinar to your manager. I think it's the thing that makes us work. It's really like these kind of Thursday sessions with Pierre. Every Thursday at 9 a.m. we have this call of 1 hour where basically have all the things prepared, all the challenges that we have like between ourselves, obviously, but a lot around the company. And that's the way we change our product process. That's the way we change our meeting process. That's the way we change our hiring process. Like all the practices that we took was a result of 2 people at Slite saying this is not good enough. The stands up are taking a lot of time. They are useless. We don't have like enough like people like disengaging and as a result trying something new. And I think remote forced you to take this startup mentality.
A suggestion I would have is like if you're not a manager or even an exec in a company, but you're still in a large company, you can suggest to the person working with you to form a remote committee of employees that gonna like maybe gather every week during half an hour and chat about remote topics and what could be improved in a company for remote. This is the new thing for all of us, so I think don't be shy, and if this is something that interests you, like you can definitely form this remote committee at your company.
And that's a perfect segue to the last slide. We are trying something new. Honestly, Slite is a documentation tool, obviously, and communication one. So, like we are not used to that, but we are trying something new because we actually gave coaching sessions to a lot of people already, and we saw that it worked. And so we are trying that, like it's for free. You go to slite.com/remote chat and you can be paired with somebody at Slite that is expert in the topic and get, like a benefit from like an open coaching session on your specific challenges. So typically, if you start to say to your boss, like, I want to form a remote committee with another person and be little to squad people, well, you can speak to us and we can give you our best tips to do that. And I think that's it. Thanks a ton for attending. Hope this was useful.
And we'll send the recording over, and we'll let you know when we have the next ones planned.
Yeah, absolutely. And let us know, like if we have like other topics that you want to hear about, other things that, like you felt from other feedback that you want to give us, like we're really happy to take it.
For sure.
And yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a ton, folks. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.